Well, ladies and gentlemen, it has been a bad few days for Kamala Harris in terms of polling. We've got even top Democratic internal people saying that Pennsylvania is slipping away from them, with many numbers backing it up. All the voter registration, all the early mail in ballot requests, it's all looking good for Republicans. And also, just 4 or 5 polls that have come out. There was a big swath of CNN polls that came out that were kind of weird. It had Trump up by 5 in Arizona, had Harris up by like 5 in Wisconsin. But overall, the polls have been looking really, really good for Trump. The betting is looking good. Trump's up to 52%, 5% point lead there. And there has been literally no DNC bounce, although you could say she already got a bounce before the DNC. And it's like, is she really going to get another one? Well, the DNC wasn't very good. And on top of that, again, she probably had already gotten a bounce there. But we do have Rasmussen coming out with another update. They do polling every day. You can see Trump in terms of just the daily updates. He's been leading recently, though. You can see a few polls that Rasmussen had that had Harris up by 1. This is just general popular votes, so still, if Trump is down 1 in terms of that, you'll take that 100% of the time. But you do have another recent poll that came out that had Trump up by 6. The more accurate thing to look at would be the 5-day moving average, which Trump, I think, is up right around 2.5 right now in terms of the Rasmussen average. Of course, you're going to get liberals saying Rasmussen is this crazy right-wing pollster. Well, if you look at their history, that's not true at all. Certainly, they definitely kind of have the mantra of being more right-wing versus some of these other pollsters, but at least they're a lot more open about their polling. You'll get ABC News just randomly dropping a poll. It just doesn't make a whole lot of sense when you look at the internal numbers, and no one ever talks about it. They don't have to answer to it. This was CNN's poll. This is a very strange thing. You can see Harris up by 6 in Wisconsin, by 5 in Michigan. By the way, I've seen a few polls recently that have had Trump up by 1 in Michigan. I think Michigan's going to be a state that Trump can definitely win, although it probably will be the hardest out of the 3 major Rust Belt states. Georgia basically tied with Harris +1, Nevada, Harris +1, Pennsylvania tied, and then Arizona, Trump +5. So kind of weird. I mean, Trump leading by 5 in Arizona, losing in Wisconsin by 6, kind of seems like some inaccurate data there when looking at that. You wouldn't expect that big of a change from Arizona to some of those other swing states where it's like an 11-point change. You can see the election forecast, the odds here. So what I think is happening, oh, it's nice. They've got a nice little countdown to 62 days. What I think's happening here is these are people betting actual money, right? And so the odds are going to be adjusted based on how much money gets put on Trump, how much money gets put on Harris. And while you could make an argument that if you just look at the polls and take the polls all together as an aggregate for like gospel and say that the polls, let's say they're 100% right, the overall odds would probably be Harris at around 52%, Trump at around 48%. So why do we see the discrepancy here with Trump at around 52%, with Harris down to 47%? Well, I think that's people understanding and baking it, into themselves that Trump has overperformed the polls in both 2020 and 2016. So if we use that and we look at these polls and we understand that even if Harris is slightly up, it's still great numbers for Trump. If we have a polling error as big as 2020 versus Biden, Trump wins this election probably with like 312, 320 electoral votes. If it's like 2016, it's very similar. So if you take it off of the past 2 elections, even if we don't have any polling error, I mean, Trump in some of these polls is looking very, very well. You had 3 straight Pennsylvania polls with Trump up. You have all the internal numbers in Pennsylvania looking good. You've got the voter registration in Arizona looking amazing. We don't think Kerry Lake is going to win Arizona, but I mean, Trump probably is going to win by like 2 or 3 points, I'd say right now. Nevada's looking good. And you've got even like a state like Ohio, which we've seen Trump now in recent polls up by 9, 10, sometimes 11 points. The average is like 10.5, which would be a 2-point overperformance from where he was in 2020 and 2016. Remember, he won Ohio by 8 points in both 2020 and 2016. So if he's winning it by 10.5, obviously that's going to push Moreno over, and he'll win that election probably by around 3 or 4 points over Brown. But you're also going to have Trump possibly showing an indicator that if he overperforms based on where he was at in Ohio in 2020 by 2.5 points, that could help him in Pennsylvania. it could help him in Wisconsin because Ohio is still the Rust Belt. It's just not a swing state anymore. It is a Republican state. So if he overperforms in Ohio, you would think that's a good sign for the other Rust Belt states, let alone all the internal numbers. I mean, basically, all the voter registration says this country is moving to the right in virtually every single state outside of California and then also possibly Colorado. But these numbers are really good for Trump. And that's one of the indicators where I think people are factoring in it's the idea that Trump has overperformed the polls, and these are people putting actual money on it, and they're saying, listen, if you just look at everything as an unbiased independent, and you look at the data in 2016, and you look at the data in 2020, and you use that as an inference for 2024, you would say Trump is the clear favorite in this election. Right now, if you're just an alien and you landed here and you didn't know what happened in 2016 and 2020, and you didn't look at any of the internal polls, you could say, well, the election's a toss up. And it is true when you go to these states, the net average in terms of Harris versus Trump in Wisconsin and Pennsylvania, it's like zero point 0.5. At least the last time I saw it, the difference is like within a point. It's under a point. So you would say, well, it's a clear toss up. That's within the margin of error, and it is. But again, if you factor in the previous performance, that is why, I mean, now we're seeing Democrats get very nervous. They're starting to bring back the Russia hoax. They're trying to use that in their back pocket. They're already saying they're going to sanction Russia because they know that Trump is likely going to win. I mean, they even know that this is very likely going to happen, right? It's like the jig is up. Trump is going to win. Let's stop the nonsense. She won't do an interview. She won't. And then, like, the crazy thing is, it's like, so she does an interview and it's like, is that it? So she just did one interview and now it's done. So, oh, she did her interview. It's like a 5-year-old kid. Go solve, the math problem. Go do 5 plus 2. Now you're done. Oh, you're done. It's like, no, that's not how these things work. You need to go out and do multiple interviews. You need to do solo interviews. But with her, we're all grading her on a curve. It's like, oh, you did an interview. You participated. You got an A plus. You're done now. You don't have to do anything. Yay. You did one 20-minute interview with CNN, which was cut up and edited. And the Harris campaign, I would imagine, made CNN agree, you cannot release the transcript of this. We're going to give you the interview because we know everyone wants to get an interview from Harris, and we're going to give you the views, CNN, but you need to understand you're not to release the transcript because Harris had some real commie talking points and they had to cut it all out. So these are really good numbers for Trump. And you can see this is a general election. Well, who is this? This is a recent poll from somebody that was, I guess, famous for nailing 2016. This is huge. I mean, +3 in a general popular vote. I wonder if this will get added to Real Clear Politics net average, but Trump +5 in all the battleground states. +3 is just in the general is just, I mean, that would be a death blow. You've got, this is a good news, the Senate now, very close. Casey's been leading all those polls by like 8 or 9. This is a tied poll. And so we know how Trump overperforms against, all of the Senate Republican candidates, pretty much everyone on the ballot. Trump's going to overperform by at least a few points. That's normally how it works when it comes to just people are, there are people that just vote for Trump just because of how famous he is. And so Trump, if this is tied, I mean, Trump's up by, I would say, 3 points in Pennsylvania. Now, this poll is probably a bit of an aberration because Casey's been up in the incumbent. He's been up in basically all the polls I've seen by like 4, 5, 6, 7. Now it's going to get closer. It's not going to be that crazy. That's normally what happens with these Senate polls. Casey will be leading by like an average of 5.5, and then he'll win by like 1. I would say it would be something like that. I'm not saying Republicans are going to win Pennsylvania, in the Senate, but still, those are really, really good numbers. There you can see that. And then, who do you trust more to? I shouldn't laugh at this. I don't know. Who do you trust more to handle the economy? Certainly, I mean, that's good. Those are good numbers out in Nevada. So this is a CNN poll where they ask kind of like exit poll type questions. And obviously, that's a nice indicator for Nevada, although it is only a 6 electoral votes. Nevada and Arizona, so both of those states out west, do trust Trump significantly more. Pennsylvania, the most important state. I mean, it seems like Trump and Harris are just living in Pennsylvania. They've been there, like, Trump's got another town hall in Pennsylvania. Harris was like in Philadelphia, I think, a few days ago. They're always in Pennsylvania because it is the most important state. All of these, I mean, it is kind of crazy. It's like, who do you trust more to handle the economy? We've got 25% inflation here. Like, but I know it's a partisan country. You're always going to say Democrat if you're a Democrat. I understand, but it is kind of funny still to see that. We also do have, these are encouraging numbers out of Ohio. Moreno, this is like the first poll I've seen Moreno leading since ever. And to me, it really doesn't matter. Like, if Moreno's down by 2 or 3, as long as Trump wins by 9 or 10 points, there's no way there's going to be that big of a discrepancy down ballot. It's just not going to happen. Moreno will get Trump will drag Moreno over the finish line, and he'll win that by about 3. That Senate race by about 3.5, I would say. But these numbers with Trump plus 11 in Ohio, again, he wins it by 8.5. He improves to a plus 11, even plus 10.5. That's a very good indicator for the other Rust Belt states. Maybe he will overperform relative to how he did in 2020 in those states as well, specifically like Pennsylvania and Wisconsin, but also Michigan. I mean, there's been a few polls where Trump's been up in Michigan as well. So the betting is looking better for Trump. The betting is not an end all be all. It does fluctuate. It goes up, it goes down. All these polls do. But as long as we continue to see these kind of, it's anyone's race type of thing, that's very good news for Trump based on how he overperforms the general polls every election. This will be the third straight one. He'll probably overperform them. He overperformed greatly in 2016 and 2020. So when they say, oh, Harris is up by 1.2 and just the general, she's up by 1, as long as it's close like this and you don't start seeing these crazy polls where Harris is consistently leading in certain states by like 7 or 8 points, this is very good news. This is exactly what you want to see. There's no DNC bump. Of course, things are probably going to change again here, although we'll see with the debate. Because again, normally what I think happens with these debates is Republicans say Trump wins, Democrats say Harris wins. If we don't, it's going to be hard to see a true knockout, in this debate because the mics are muted, which the Trump campaign wanted. Well, originally the Biden campaign wanted it, and then Harris didn't want them unmuted. But the point is, it's going to be hard to see separation. The only way we're able to say that is because Biden is basically, Biden can't coherently think. That's honestly, that's why we were able to see like Biden get knocked out against nothing. I mean, he just couldn't talk in that debate against Trump. So I don't think that's going to happen again. So I think the debate will probably be a lot of, oh, Republicans think Trump did good, Democrats think Harris did good. But I mean, like to me, it is crazy to see her push these communist policies. They're like, if you don't want to call them communists, they're heavy socialist policies. And if you're Trump, you have to bring that stuff up. I mean, I think the only issue is you're going to hear all the January 6th crap. There's going to be some other things. You're going to hear a lot of abortion stuff, although we'll see. When it comes to like abortion, that topic, it's going to come down to how much does how much does the network want to spend on it in terms of they have to move the conversation along. And I'm sure it's going to be a topic that gets brought up. That's one of the topics that is not good for Republicans, no matter which way you slice it. I mean, there's definitely a very deep meaning to that, but we're not going to get into it. Either way, Trump wins on economy. Trump wins on the border. I mean, if I'm Trump, I would say it's kind of a funny thing to, get people to laugh. I would be like, I really appreciate what's happened. Kamala Harris's anonymous aides have come out and they literally endorsed my border wall. So, I mean, I appreciate that. Thank you for endorsing me. I mean, thanks for endorsing me. She endorsed me. That's great. Imagine if Trump said that. He's like, Kamala endorsed me, like, because that's what happened. And CNN didn't even ask her about that. So, look, we'll talk about the debate at another time, but these numbers are good for Trump. The debate's going to change things a little bit for sure. But again, it could be one of those where Republicans say Trump won, Democrats say Harris won. It really doesn't change much, but I guess we'll see. Either way, guys, that is going to do it for this video. Make sure you follow me on X. Link to that's always in the description.